One of the most common retirement planning questions is whether you should tap your 401k or your IRA before claiming Social Security in order to maximize your benefit. So in this video, we're going to help you answer that question by walking through an in-depth case study using ROTH Capital to examine this strategy, and then we'll dump the data into a spreadsheet to let you have a slightly closer look. So if you just want a quick answer, this is not the video for you. But if you're looking for a way to evaluate this question at a deeper level, then keep watching. But first, my name is Kevin Lum. I'm a certified financial planner, and this channel is dedicated to helping 1 million people retire without worry. Now, I have to warn you up front, there are no right or wrong answers because there are so many variables that we just don't know the answer to. The variables that are going to impact this decision are life expectancy, market returns, inflation. Unless you have a crystal ball that shows the future, and if you do, send me an email, maybe we can invest money together. But unless you have that special magic crystal ball, it's going to be impossible to give an exact answer to this question. My goal is to provide a balanced look at the pros and cons so you can make the most informed decision about how you're going to coordinate your retirement income stream, Social Security or whatever other streams you have coming in, with your distributions from your retirement account. So today we're once again going to look at Phil and Claire. If you've watched the other videos, you know this is kind of the couple I continue to use as an example, but the variables are going to be a bit different today. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at Phil and Claire. We're going to assume they're both the same age 61. We're going to assume that his full retirement age, Phil will qualify for $3,500 a month. Claire will qualify for the spousal benefit. We're going to make these projections out to age 95, and don't worry, we're also going to look at age 80. One of the things feedback I often get is people say the projections go out too far, so we'll look at both. And then we're going to plan on a 401k balance of $800,000 invested in a 60-40 portfolio. So that's kind of the backdrop, the assumptions I'm going to be using for this case study. One other note about the assumptions. I am only assuming that they have Social Security income and that they have money in a qualified tax-deferred account. I'm not doing any Roth conversions. I'm not trying to maximize on anything else. You'll see on the balance sheet they have $50,000 in their bank account, but I've actually put that balance sheet only, so that doesn't play into the calculation. I'm just trying to look at the question, what happens if you claim Social Security early and take a smaller amount from your retirement account? Or what if you take a larger amount from your retirement account, so with drawing down your retirement account, and then delaying taking your Social Security? Those are the only two variables that I really am looking at. So I'm not doing anything else. There are a million other calculations that we could make, right? Should they do a Roth conversion? Do they have money, in a taxable account and all these various things? But I didn't want to look at any of that because it's going to muddy the calculations. So here we are in ROTH Capital. We've got Phil and Claire retiring at age 62. And there's a couple of variables that we want to set. One is their asset allocation. I have it set to 60-40, which is moderate. If you wanted to go more conservative, you could go to balance, which is 50-50. On the moderate allocation, they're using data on the 60-40 portfolio, and the average annualized return is around 7.1, 7.2%. And then here is where you can set taking Social Security as early as possible, or you can go optimal age or age 70. And then you need to set monthly expenses, because one of the things you really need to figure out and solve for when you're trying to answer this question, what are my monthly expenses? So we put in here $4,750, and so you can see with those variables, there's about a 60% chance of success. So they have $800,000, they need $4,750 a month, and they're taking Social Security as soon as possible. If you remember, $3,500 is the benefit amount for Phil at the full retirement age. Claire is going to get the spousal benefit. So then we can come up here and we can stress test it. And this is important to do. And this is one of the things that you don't always get when you're just doing these calculations in a spreadsheet. So what could blow this plan up? What are the biggest risks to the plan? And two of the biggest risks, and you can kind of play with this, if Social Security is reduced by 20%, that takes the success of this plan down to only 28%. So it's really dependent on nothing happening with Social Security. And then the other thing is inflation. If inflation is 2% above what it is right now, so it's set in the system at 3%, if it went to 5% and stayed consistently at 5%, this plan would really struggle to make it. So next we can come back in this account. And one other thing I wanted to show you was you can also look at the cash flow. So you can see here they have the income coming in because they've taken Social Security, and this will estimate out what that income is. And then you can also come over here to either accounts or net worth, and you can see that their qualified assets are continuing to grow. Why? Because they are not taking any money out of the account, or not taking as much money out of the account to meet their living needs. They have this qualified account growing. The question, and we'll talk about this in a minute, is does that actually cause them to pay more tax over time? And you can download this data, which I'm going to do, and I will show you what some of those calculations will look like. But let's come back over to the retirement tab. So we've got a 60% chance of success. So we're going to say, what happens if they take the optimal strategy, which the optimal strategy is for Phil to wait to age 70, Claire to take her benefit at age 67, because as you remember, spousal benefit, there's no benefit to waiting beyond your full retirement age. And now we're going to recalculate. And so you see that the probability of success for this plan now jumps up to 94%. And so even though they have a period where they're pulling money out of their retirement account to be able to make ends meet from 62 until when the Social Security kicks in, it's actually a much more secure plan. So now we see on the stress test, inflation going up by 2% doesn't impact this plan near as much. Why? Because they have a higher amount of income from Social Security fixed through delaying, because Social Security is inflation protected. And then the other thing is they also have their portfolio, which will have continued to grow. Now, their portfolio will be a bit smaller, but you have a portfolio that's continuing to grow. They won't need to withdraw as much from that portfolio later on because they'll have a much higher fixed income amount. Now, Social Security dropping, the benefit dropping is still going to be a problem, but not nearly as big a problem as it is if they claim early. And so then you can come over here to the cash flow tab, and you can look at the summary, and you can see they've got all these years with no income coming in, but then when it does kick on, 80-something thousand a year. And then we can go look at their net worth, and we'll see their qualified asset, that their tax-deferred account, really the value begins to drop in the early years, where the other one had kept increasing because they had to pull from that. But even with that, they end up in their retirement plan ends up much more secure. Now, this is assuming they live to age 95. If you go in and change it, and I'm not going to rerun the numbers for you, but if you go in and change it, you can go to family and you can set a planning horizon at age 80. If you change those numbers, it becomes much less favorable. And so that's one of the problems with making these calculations is it's dependent on knowing your longevity. It's dependent on knowing market returns. It's dependent on knowing what's going to happen with inflation. And so it's very hard to make a very solid calculation where you can predict what these numbers will look like. But what I did want to show you is now I want to switch over from this screen, and I want to look at the spreadsheet, because when you over here in the cash flow tab, you've got the summary, and you see this button, you can download it. You can download net worth. The reason I'm going to download it is because I want to calculate what will the total amount that I'll receive in income, and then also what will my total tax payment be, and then what will the total net worth be with these two various scenarios. So give me a second. Let me switch over to the other screen. Okay, so I downloaded that data, and now here it is in Excel. And so what you can see is we have the year, and then their age, their qualified, non-qualified, qualified asset. But I want to start looking at this first tab, and this first tab is going to look at income flow. So you can see, they have a number of years without any income, and then you can see their tax payments. So what I was curious is, what was the total amount of income if they claimed Social Security at age 70, as opposed to claiming at age 62. So $3.2 million in income, almost 3.3 if they lived to age 95. That's not surprising. We've talked about those calculations before. But the total tax bill was only $305,000. Now let's come over to age 62. So they only have $2.3 million in income, but the total tax bill ends up being $383,000. So even though they have less income coming in, they have a significantly higher tax bill claiming earlier. And part of that reason is because more of their Social Security benefit is going to be subject to tax than if they were reducing that tax-deferred qualified account early on before they turned on Social Security. So next, come over here and look at net worth. If they claim at age 70, the total net worth would be about $1.4 million. If they claim at age 62, the total net worth would be about $787,000. Now, one thing to note here is that you have $787,000 left over in a tax-deferred account. Your heirs are going to pay tax in that account. In the same way, in this account, you have about $594,000, and you have $794,000 inside of a non-qualified account. So this money could very possibly pass to your heirs tax-free. This will also pass taxable. Now, some of you might be asking, why is it a larger amount if they claim at age 70 in a non-qualified account? The reason is, as they had to take RMDs from this account, from their qualified assets, they don't end up needing all that money to live on, so they pay tax on it, and then they can reinvest it into a taxable account and just let it sit there, and all the money in the taxable account can pass to their heirs with a step-up basis, so it can pass completely tax-free. So when I'm looking at these numbers here and saying, what's the total number of tax? I'm just talking about the total number of tax paid by the person with the account, not by their heirs. So you're going to pay $382,000 compared to $300,000 in taxes, but also the heirs will have to pay more taxes as well. As I said at the beginning, so many variables will play a part in this decision: inflation, market returns, life expectancy. And so it's impossible to know the answer ahead of time. And so this decision is going to depend greatly on your specific situation, right? What are your longevity assumptions? What are your investment return assumptions? Understanding that they are simply assumptions for most of you, right? Not going to be guaranteed. But at least hopefully you now have the tools to kind of think through this analysis. Now, there's no perfect answer, as I've said multiple times, but in my opinion, the best plan is to maximize your total lifetime retirement income under reasonable assumptions, and to also plan on having a longer time horizon. Because here's the truth of the matter, and I get a lot of grief in the comments about this. You know, people say you should only plan to age 84, that's the average lifespan and whatever, or insert the age. But a large chunk of you watching are going to live much longer than the average. And I would much rather you plan for a longer life expectancy and live a shorter amount of time than plan for a short life expectancy and live longer. Because if you're 85, it's going to be really hard to close that income gap. If you're 62 and the market doesn't do quite what you need to, you could probably get a part-time job. At age 85, you have a lot less options. The other thing is, as you're putting this plan together, you want to be sure you are protecting yourself against higher inflation. I have no idea what the future holds, but I do know that when I'm putting together a retirement plan and I'm looking at what can blow this retirement plan up, what is one of the biggest risks to this retirement plan? Out of control inflation is one of the biggest threats to your retirement. And so you want to do as much as possible to protect against this. Now, I'm going to give you a link in the description to play with Right Capital yourself, but I warn you, I would highly suggest getting a professional's opinion. I can't provide support for Right Capital. Right Capital won't provide support because they just work with advisors, and there are so many variables. It took me a couple of years to learn this system. I hope it at least kind of gets you thinking about the possibilities, but I would really advise in getting a professional opinion on exactly what your situation looks like. And if you're looking for an advisor, you can explore getting a free retirement assessment by using the link below, and you can go through. I have a few questions to see if we'd be a good fit. And if we're not a good fit, I'm happy to refer you to someone else. Thanks for watching.